In this AlignMix how-to video, you will learn how to set up your data in Excel so that you can easily import that data into AlignMix. Now, the number one thing to remember when creating your data sets in Excel is to have your column labels all appear in the same row. You can use multiple worksheets or single worksheets for these imports, but what's most important is having those labels all appear in the same row. Take, for example, what we see here on the screen. This is a basic zip to territory file. You've got a list of every zip code, and in this example, that's about 40,000 for the US. Each zip code is assigned to a territory ID and also a name. Having an ID and name is not required, but you do need one of the two in order to import your current sales territories into AlignMix. If you're creating maps for Canada, then instead of zip code, you would need the FSAs. If you're creating this for the UK, you would need UK postcodes. Anytime you're importing data, you need that geographic component. It doesn't need to be in column A, it just needs to be in its own column. So let's explain what the software will do when it sees this data during the import process. AlignMix will locate the zip code, assign this zip code to this territory ID, and if you had other information like territory name, it would include that also. So let's take a look at what this would look like in AlignMix after the import has been completed. So here we have a completed version of that import. We've imported the zip to territory assignments, and you can see we've got geographic colored in shapes here, and that 3-digit ID represents that unique ID for all the territories that was in column B in that Excel file. If you imported with the territory name, you can then toggle between ID and name or show them both as labels here centered within each territory. So now let's go back to our Excel file and look at some other examples of data that you can import into AlignMix. So let's move on to my third tab here, Zip Territory, District, and Region. Let's zoom in a little bit. In this example, we also have the zip, territory, and territory name like we did in our first example. But now we also have column D and column E. This import will basically create our geographic territory assignments and at the same time create a hierarchy of assignments. So territories will be assigned to districts and districts would be assigned to regions. And all of this can be imported all at the same time. So let's move on to our fourth tab here. Here we have zip code and population data. And you'll notice that, yes, the column labels all appear in the same row, but this time we don't have any territory, district, or region assignments. This is strictly a zip code import that is linking data to each zip code. So now let me show you what that would look like once you've imported just these two columns of data into AlignMix. Here is an example of the zip code and population import. You'll notice right away that there are no colors on the map, and that's because AlignMix didn't know that those zip codes are assigned to territories. All we imported was the zip code and the data set. If I use the lasso tool here and I lasso an area and let go, you'll see that there are data sets imported. You can see the total population for that lassoed area. What it doesn't show is any territory assignments, sales rep assignments, or accounts because none of that was imported during that import. So let's go back to our Excel file and look at a few more examples. Here in this example, we've got our zip, territory, and hierarchy assignments, and also population. All of these can be imported at the same time. In order to import the hierarchy, you do need both of these. You can't just import territory and region if region is your third level. You need to import territory, district, then region. Then your sales reps are actually linked to your territories. And then you've got population data linked to zip codes. So this is just a variation of a zip code based territory import that you can perform in AlignMix. So now let's take a look at a different data set, the accounts data. So here we have a very basic account list, similar to what a CRM export would look like. We've got the account ID and the account name. We highly recommend using the account ID, a unique identifier for your import. If you don't have that, you can import with just an account name, and then AlignMix will create a unique ID for you, basically starting at 001. We then move on, we've got the street address, we've got the city, state, and then the zip code. As I mentioned earlier, you do need that geographic component. If you're working in US zip codes for your AlignMix file, then any data set that you import needs that zip code. If you're working in Canadian FSAs, then instead of a zip code, you would have the 3-digit FSA. We also have a segmentation here. So in this example, all of our accounts are segmented by A, B, C, and D, but you're not limited to a single letter. It could be any type of segmentation that you use in your company. If you don't use a segmentation, you don't need that. But when you do perform this import, all of your account icons will appear as the same blue square, which you can then change in the settings. Moving on, we've got these accounts assigned to territories and to a sales rep, and we've also got 3 numeric data sets that will be linked to the unique ID during this import. And we also have some text-based data that you can include during this import process. So let me show you what this will look like once you've imported this data into AlignMix. Here we have our AlignMix file with only those accounts imported from that account data set. And you'll notice you don't see any sales territories created because the software only imported our accounts and the account assignments. And you'll see our account segmentation is here, A, B, C, D, in this account legend. And if I zoom in, you will see accounts scattered about. If I lasso an area and let go, you will see that there are territories, but they're at the account level. We haven't told the software how to assign the zip codes. And you would do that by either performing a zip to territory import, which was one of the first data sets I showed you at the start of this video, or you could use a cleanup tool, which I'll explain in a later video. But that cleanup tool will look at every zip code that has an account in there and assign those zip codes to the same territory that those accounts are assigned to. And you'll also notice that there are some data sets imported. That's because in that account data file, there was some sales figures linked to each account ID. So let's click here on close and go back to our Excel file. I should mention there is no order for importing your data. You can import your accounts first, then your zip to territory and your hierarchy file, and then finally your sales rep data. Or you can import your sales reps first and then accounts and so on. So there is no specific order for your imports. So here on the screen, you will see our sales rep information. Now this is just a sales rep roster. We've got the ID and the name. In this case, they are the same. Some companies will have a numeric ID, which you would then use that for the import process. So here we've got, again, all of our column labels in the same row. We've got our sales reps names, the zip code, which is that geographic component. You can't import any data without that geography. And we also have their sales territory assignments. So during this import, you'll actually import your sales rep's name. They'll be placed in their home zip code as a little icon. And at the same time, they'll be assigned to a sales territory. You can also import a personnel roster. If you've created a hierarchy and you've got districts and regions, you can import a full roster with district managers and region managers, and those assignments will be created at the same time. And again, all of our labels for our columns appear in the same row. And you need that in order to simplify the import process. Now we've gone through several examples of setting up your data for import. Now you may be wondering, how do I start an AlignMix file if I don't have any data? And that's fine. You can actually create sales territories without any data imported. You simply just skip all these import videos and just jump into the navigation and tool section that you'll find a few videos below this one. And that completes this video on setting up your data in Excel. You can now move on to the import videos, which are found below this video.